It was nice to kind of go off the rails for a bit.
See, that's why I don't take no. I don't follow. I don't really do the notes. It's more fun just to see where the conversation takes you.
Absolutely.
This is the Citadel Cafe.
This is the Citadel Cafe, episode number 75, recorded live Wednesday, August 14th, 2013. I am Joel Duggan, and normally on my right is Mr. Peyton Francis, but Peyton had something come up last minute tonight. He does have a 3-year-old, so shit happens. He usually resides at cardboardtreehouse.com, but in his stead, I have managed to wrangle a longtime sought-after guest, friend of mine, fellow cartoonist, Adam Huber. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Hey, our pleasure. I'm excited that we were able to finally work out a schedule, because you've wanted to come on for a while. It's just that the scheduling conflicts and stuff like that was behind the scenes was a bit of a pain in the butt. And you are a busy man because, like myself, you are a web cartoonist. So you draw Bug Martini, newly coined.
Yes.
Although a comic that's been long time running, and long time running like 5 days a week, by the way. You bastard. And you also do a podcast with someone else that has been on the show before, Matt Forcum, and that is Geeks of Steel.
That'd be right.
And you guys have been doing that for a couple of years now too, haven't you?
Yeah. I was going to say, I was trying to think, like, it doesn't seem like it's been that long, but then I was going through our archives, like, wow, we're up to like 120 episodes. I guess we have been doing this for a while, haven't we?
Nice. Very, very cool. Did you guys do like a big to-do for the 100th episode?
No, because I didn't know that it was the 100th episode.
Nice.
Matt asked me, he's like, hey, should we do something special? I'm like, why? And he's like, it's the 100th episode. Like, oh, is it? Oh, okay.
All right.
That's the problem with like working a day job, doing a webcomic 5 days a week, and doing a podcast. I can't keep track of anything.
Time is of no consequence.
After I started the webcomic, like Christmas sneaks up on me.
Yeah.
Like my parents, like, when are you coming down? I'm like, for what? And they're like, Christmas. I'm like, oh crap, that's right. I gotta get gifts.
Oh man. So tell everybody a little bit about the comic, because I don't even know if I've mentioned it on the show before. We generally we don't usually cover comics that often. So tell everybody a little bit about Bug Martini and where they can find it.
Bug Martini can be found at bugmartini.com, and basically gag a day webcomic that it's got little bugs in it, but really they're people. And that's about it. It's very wordy. I've been trying to get rid of the words because because I realized like it's really easy to start writing and just keep writing jokes and writing dialogue and I can throw this joke in, and then I realized like, wow, I wouldn't want to read this. This is just way too packed full of words. So I've been trying to reduce the amount of words.
Well, I will counter your argument and say that it is one of the few webcomics on a very short list of ones that I read on a regular basis. Being a cartoonist, you probably noticed the first thing that you do as becoming a web cartoonist is the amount of cartoons you have time to read dwindles significantly.
Oh God, yeah, I don't read anything.
Yeah,
I barely read mine. There's typos in mine. Like, well, the reason there's typos is because I don't read my own comics.
And so it's one of those things that, like it's almost like you don't want to steal. Like you're worried that you're gonna.
There is part of that, yeah.
Read something funny and then 2 weeks later be like, oh my God, this is hilarious. You're like, wait a minute, that was too easy. Where did I read that? Where did that come from? That can't be mine.
I've run into that several times where I come up with a joke and I'm like, that came to me way too easy somewhere. And my thought is like, that's gotta be like a Saturday Night Live sketch from like 1983 or something.
Yeah,
it just feels like that, but I can't go through the archive, so screw all the scraps.
Whatever, yeah. That's what the internet is for. There are people out there that will inform you that'll be, they'll push up their glasses and say, well, actually, Adam, on episode comic 393 2 years ago on Wednesday, you actually already did this joke.
Oh boy, that day is coming. I already did 2 James Bond themed comics that people kind of said, hey, this. I looked at them, I was like, well, it's James Bond, but it's it's different jokes, but they're both the same. Like, what if I were James Bond?
Yeah.
How I'd screw it up and blah blah blah. I did have one person like point at like one of my comics and say that it was like a pearls before swine joke,
Oh, okay.
and then I saw the link and I was like, no, this isn't. This is about the same subject, but it's not the same joke.
Yeah.
But no, I know that time is coming. It's only a matter of time. The more comics I draw, the greater the chances are that there's gonna be that overlap, and not even like not that I'm ripping someone off, but there's just overlap in humor. You can't avoid it. At some there's all of us, comedians, writers, cartoonists, we're all telling jokes. There's gonna be overlap. There's gonna be two people on opposite sides of the earth. They come up with the same joke, and say it, and then everyone's pointing at fingers and who stole from who, and
Yeah. No, it's just a matter of time. Well, the same thing with Hollywood. I mean, there's only like 7 stories or something that you can actually tell that are worth telling. Well, you actually have a fan in our live chat room.
Awesome.
TCC fan is a Bug Martini fan. She says she reads the comic
Sweet.
every day. So yeah, which of course brings me to mention our chat room. We record live on Wednesday evenings, 9 p.m. Atlantic, 8 p.m. Eastern. If you happen to be in either one of those time zones, if you're not, do the math. And hopefully you can join us and hopefully have a little bit of a back and forth here with what you've been interested in over the course of the last week. On the Citadel Cafe, if you're new, this is where myself, usually a guest, and Peyton come to talk about the geeky things that we are into, sci-fi, fantasy, that kind of thing. We're not myopic, though. We cover everything from movies to television, books, apps, and websites. On the docket, though, because this is a little bit of a milestone for us with episode number 75, quickly coming up on episode 100, which is exciting, I've decided to take a little bit of a shift in the show. And that is that after some conversations I had at Nerdtacular earlier this summer, the place to be with no matter what you're doing is YouTube. And YouTube is one place where we are not, because we are an audio podcast, and there's no real need to add video to it. So I've just been putting things on YouTube because I wasn't sure that an audio podcast would sail. And I was told numerous times that I was wrong. So as of tonight, or whenever I decide to post this on the internet, I will be adding the Citadel Cafe to my YouTube channel, which is just my name, youtube.com/Joel Duggan. And I'm not sure exactly how yet, but I will be posting the rest of the content, the older episodes, maybe on like off days. Like if I post a new episode Friday, maybe on a Tuesday or something like that, I'll post an older episode and just kind of work up to some of the current content. Shouldn't take too long. Matter of fact, it might take 74 weeks. But I'm excited because I was able to do a new high definition graphic for it, something to actually have up on the screen with some information about the show and who you're listening to and where it can be found, all that kind of stuff. And I'm stoked. So that is going to be coming your way very soon. And look for us on YouTube. But it's just going to be, like I said, under me. I'm not going to create a new Citadel Cafe account because I'm done. I'm done creating new accounts for social media. I will go get them to keep them from being used by other people, but I'm only going to tweet from my stuff. Did you have more than one Twitter account, or did you when you rolled over with Bug Martini, did you just change the name and keep it?
I used to have like Bug Comic at Twitter, and now it's just Bug Martini. I did think about splitting it up and having like one for me, but the problem is what I found is that there's lots of Adam Hubers out there, to my surprise, and it's really hard to find like a real unique Adam Huber, it's like Adam Huber, Adam _ Huber, that's taken. Everything's freaking taken.
Yeah.
So I thought, in the spirit of branding, let's just stick with Bug Martini.
Yeah,
and just stick with that.
And in webcomics, you are your brand. It's
Right.
not like you do anything else as Adam Huber that's important to be on social media.
Right.
And with the podcast, lots of webcomic artists have podcasts, so you could, it all ties in pretty neat and tidy.
I think more web cartoonists than not have podcasts.
I agree. I think what it is that, we all have these creative outlets. We all want to draw comics and get stories out there. And then when you start doing it, it quickly becomes work. Work that you enjoy, but work nonetheless. And there needs to be still in your life a creative hobby, something that is not something you are required to do. It's something that you just do for fun, but still has some sort of creative outlet, and oftentimes is not drawing related. I still have a couple of things that I do. Like I'm learning to paint digitally. It's drawing related, but it's different than comic work. And audio. Like I love doing podcasts. Again, it's creative, but it doesn't take a huge amount of my time. Do you have anything outside of the comic that you do that's creative? Like, do you knit? Maybe
No.
woodwork?
The
Nothing?
closest thing I got is I bought perler beads.
Nice.
And I'm getting geared up for at some point. I have this fictional day in my mind where I'll have time off, and I'm gonna sit down and make little Nintendo sprites of my favorite Nintendo and Super Nintendo games with the perler beads.
Nice.
Because I've seen people on YouTube
Yeah.
doing those things. Like, oh, that looks like that'd be so cool if I freaking had the time. So I got the beads and I got the pegboard and everything. I just don't have the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I had the plan to become much better at painting in Photoshop than I am currently. Putting in the time every week, all that kind of stuff, never seems to happen. Whenever it's part of the problem of having a hobby that's very similar to my day job is that, like I just, after drawing all day, I'm sometimes creatively tapped, and then I have to fight the urge the next day to paint because I want to paint, but it's like, no, I have comic work to do. I have commissions to complete.
Right.
I've got to focus on all that kind of stuff. So,
it's funny you talk about like that as cartoonists, we're creative people, and that we kind of want that, when cartooning becomes work, you kind of want a new creative outlet, something fun that you can just do, and that's what podcasts kind of do. But let me ask you this: if you could make a living off let's say you can make a living off your comic strip, or you can make a living off a podcast, which would you do? You could only pick one.
That's tough. I
hate to say, I wanted to be a cartoonist since I was in first grade, but I would probably choose podcast.
Yeah, and that's I'm gonna go. I'm just go ahead and say it because it's easy.
Exactly. It's
easy.
It is
really easy.
And I kind of think that you can get a lot more humor from a podcast than from a strip. A strip is kind of like a really good joke, kind of distilled down and sanitized because it has to fit within these little rectangles. It has to. You can't have too many words. You have to draw. There's a lot of rules that a comic strip has. Even a webcomic that you would think like, oh, it's no rules. Like, nah, there's rules. If you want to have a good webcomic, you got to kind of edit your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a podcast is there's no editing really. It's just people speaking their minds. And yeah, you may have a bad show, but every so often you have that great show where everyone's on fire and you're just laying out jokes. Like, wow, that was so much more fun. That talking for an hour was way more fun than drawing for 2 hours.
Yeah. Although I have to say, one of the things that's become very clear to me as you've been speaking is that there's a lot of we in podcasting, and unless you're working with a team, it's just you on the comic. So accomplishing anything by yourself takes a lot longer. And one of the things about podcasting that's so great is like, for this show, it's like me and the guys hanging around at a bar having a beer and talking about stuff that we're into. So it comes very naturally, but you never know what the other person's really going to say, what their opinion's going to be, what jokes that they might have, formulated while they've been waiting to come on the show.
Exactly. And that's part of the great thing about about a podcast is that you have two opinions bouncing off each other. Yeah. Rather than one voice, which can be funny, but two voices almost always work better.
Yeah. It kind of makes me wonder how webcomic teams work
like Penny
together.
Arcade.
Yeah, well, Penny Arcade. And we actually recently interviewed a couple of two-person comics on Comics Coast to Coast. I'm struggling to remember their names right now. Isabel and Michelle, I think. And they do a comic out of Montreal. And it's well written, but it's not a joke comic. It's like a story. There's funny moments, but it's like a long form comic. And I can imagine that there would be both benefits and drawbacks. Because the great thing about doing the comic, like doing Starcrossed, is that it is my voice. It is the stories that I want to tell. I'm not reporting to anybody. There's no editors. I'm beholden to my readers for, posting new content, but that's it. If I want to change a character's look or name or attitude or whatever, I can just go ahead and do it. And I mean, I run the risk of losing readers if it's not something that works very well, but it's still all my decisions. And I if I had a writer that would be like, I don't know, maybe that's not where I really envisioned Charlie to go, I could be like, screw off, that's where I'm taking him. Buckle up.
Well, I think the teams that work were teams that were formed from friendship first, and not like two people that met later in life and said, "Hey, we should do a comic."
Yeah, no, that's probably right.
Hey, real quick on the subject of podcasts. Let me ask you. Tell me if this is racist or not.
All right, people.
So you invited me to the show. I was like, yeah, sure, that'd be awesome. And yesterday I was thinking about doing the podcast, and I thought to myself, I wonder if I can swear on the podcast. And then I quickly thought, Nah, I can't. I probably can't swear. He's, because Joel's Canadian. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, is that racist? That I immediately thought that because Joel's Canadian, I won't be able to swear in a show. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, is that technically racist?
I don't think it's
Because
racist.
Canadian's not a race.
Yeah, no, I'm a Caucasian Canadian.
So, like, that's not racist. I mean, maybe it's like in a weird realm of bigotry, I guess.
I think
but
it's
not
just
negative.
yeah. Without the risk of alienating our American listeners, I feel like it's the center of the world. I guess symptom in that just assuming what Canada's like, having either never been here or not known much about it. But don't worry, Toronto has the same problem.
With swearing?
No, we're thinking they're the center of the world.
Oh.
Yeah, I can say that because my girlfriend's from Toronto. It's fun to poke fun. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's funny too because I've been listening to a lot of podcasts about WildStar, the MMO that's coming out from Carbine sometime, hopefully later this year, knock on wood. And it's kind of like a Western in space. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, the majority of the podcasts that I've found about WildStar are all done by people in the South U.S. So everybody has a bit of a Texas drawl, or maybe they're from Louisiana or whatever, but everybody sounds like they're from the South. Right. And I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Like, they sound like they're from the game. I'm just assuming they're all from the South. Some of these people could be from Chicago or Oregon. Like, I don't know. But everybody to me just somehow sounds like they're from the Southern U.S. and on these podcasts. And again, I'm making that assumption. And because I've been watching a lot of Westerns too on Netflix, it's all kind of in my head. My how if you watch too much of the same thing, your inner monologue around the house starts to have that sort of feel to it. Mm-hmm. You watch too much British comedy and you start using British swear words in your mind when you stub your toe or whatever. Well, all of my inner monologue has had this like slow Kentucky drawl for months.
Oh, that's awesome. Can you do that?
I can't do it without making myself sound really like an idiot. I mean, it cracks Jocelyn up because when they speak on Justified, they get real slow with what they're saying. They're talking about sticking a knife between your rib cage and just giving it a little bit of a twist, just enough to make just enough to make it bleed, just a little bit.
Dude, I totally buy you.
Yeah,
as a Texan. That's
it's funny.
Awesome.
It's funny. I mean, I've got friends that are from Kentucky, and they are probably cursing a blue streak right now, saying, "Shut up, just stop." And I mean, the only thing I have to say to that is like, "Fuck you, eh?" Just, eh? It's so funny. I find that accent hilarious. Like it's something that I find endearing. It's something that I find. It can be very condescending when they need it to. Like, I remember years ago watching Friday Night Lights, which is a fantastic drama. And, of course, it's set in high school Texas football. And I can't remember her last name, but her first name is Bonnie. And she plays the wife of the coach of the football team. She was on Spin City as well. That sitcom with Michael J. Fox. Mm-hmm. And she has... or was able to put on a pretty thick Texan accent for the show. And there would be moments where somebody would royally piss her off, yet she still has to be polite because she's in public. Mm-hmm. And they say like, well, I appreciate that. And they mean none of it. They do not appreciate shit about what just happened. But it's just this condescending, knife twisting little like, I know everything there is to know about you. I am smarter, nicer, everything better than you, and I'm just going to sit here and be polite, and that's going to make me even better. And it's such a fun way to watch heroes and villains in TV shows interact, which is like Justified is something that Jocelyn and I have been watching for quite some time. And Boyd Crowder, the main kind of villain, and Raylan Givens, the hero of the story, they have these exchanges like they're childhood friends that grew up together. They're from the same place in Kentucky. And they are on the opposite sides of morality, of the law, and everything like this as they're adults. And they have these candid conversations where Boyd knows that Raylan can't bust him for anything because he doesn't have proof. And Raylan knows that he did it, and Boyd knows that Raylan knows that he did it, but they just talk in circles, and it's like watching two snakes fight. Like it's just, it's such a good way to kind of have your characters interact with like the slow, polite dialogue just laced with venom. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy it. So have you seen any good westerns lately?
It's funny you mentioned it. The last Netflix DVD I had was Django Unchained. I'm really late to the game with all movies pretty much. And I finally saw Django Unchained. And I liked it a lot more than I thought it would.
Cool.
Because I'm not much of a Western guy. But I like Quentin's stuff, but I was like, I don't know, Quentin dealing with racism and slavery, like, this might get a little too, I don't know, weird. But no, I love that movie. That was a surprisingly good movie.
Yeah, I've heard lots of good things about it. I'm not a Quentin Tarantino fan, at least not all of his stuff. But
Yeah,
I
would agree with you there.
yeah, and I've had other people tell me that they aren't fans of his either, but they did enjoy Django Unchained.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, plus there's a lot of really good actors and stuff in it. The Western that I watched, I don't think it was. Is it Sam Raimi or is it Quentin Tarantino that did The Quick and the Dead?
That was Sam Raimi.
That was Sam Raimi. Okay.
Yeah.
See, there's another guy that I typically don't like his work, but I really liked Quick and the Dead.
I like Evil Dead 2 and Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2 was good.
When Sam Raimi sequelizes his work, I really like it. Everything else, I can take it.
Yeah, I think maybe because sequels have so much bankability that there's enough producers involved that they rein them in a little bit. And I think like Spider-Man 3 was awful.
Oh.
You know, like that's a farce. You know, not that the Amazing Spider-Man, the latest one, was very good either, but
No.
you know,
that was the worst titled movie. Because there was absolutely nothing amazing
about
movie.
it. Yeah,
it was like the title should have been just Spider-Man.
Yeah. Did you see? They've got Jamie Foxx playing Electro.
Oh, he looks kind of goofy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't remember. And correct me if I'm wrong. So, Amazing Spider-Man, was that Sony that did that because they sell the rights?
Because they have the rights. As long as they keep making Spider-Man movies, they don't have to give the rights back to Marvel. So
but
we're gonna see lots of Spider-Man movies.
But is the sequel to Amazing Spider-Man, is that still Sony or is that going back to Marvel?
No.
I don't know. Because they've changed the costume quite a bit. It now looks a lot like the comics.
Right, I noticed that.
Yeah, which is cool. I liked Garfield as Spider-Man. I thought he was okay. Yeah.
I mean, really, visually, every artist has his own take on the characters and stuff, but like visually, he looks like the perfect Peter Parker.
Yeah, he's kind of
big fro, that big hairdo, his thick eyebrows, like
great big long arms,
and he's skinny like Peter Parker. Like, oh no, I thought Tobey Maguire did a great job, but yeah, Andrew Garfield visually, if you had to pick one of the two, it's like, oh well, Andrew Garfield, that's Peter Parker right there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree. There's a guy, the guys that I'm watching right now. I got actually have a couple quick mentions. Jocelyn and I just started just a couple days ago watching Hemlock Grove, and it's a Netflix exclusive. I won't get into anything because there's spoilers in the first 5 minutes. So if you like weird, cool fantasy stuff, check out Hemlock Grove. Don't watch it over dinner though.
That's the one with the wolf. And the wolf's head and the hand coming out of the wolf's mouth.
Yes, that's the Netflix poster. And true to Netflix, I mean, if you're talking about original content, I mean, like Orange is the New Black is getting very good reviews. I really liked House of Cards. This has got, if nothing else, the production quality is top notch. Like you feel like you're watching a movie, and we've only watched about 4 episodes, but it's really, really good. But there's a guy in it, and he was in Terra Nova, this other show about dinosaurs. He played the son in Terra Nova, and he plays a gypsy son in this particular show. He's one of the main characters. And he is awesome, and he would make a really good Peter Parker.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's just got that skinny but fit, look to him. And he's a really good actor because he plays kind of this, out-of-towner bad boy in Hemlock Grove. And in Terra Nova, he plays kind of like the good son of the chief of police sort of thing, and he's very broad as an actor. I was not expecting someone so young to have such a range, so it was good because you completely forget. Like it took me a minute. It's like you ever have that moment when you're watching something on TV and you're just like, okay, I have to pause it and I have to look this guy up on IMDb or it's going to drive me nuts for the rest of the show. And that's what I did. I was like, oh my god, he was in Terra Nova. Like that's where I know him from because I recognized him. Like I know I've seen him around, but I'm not immediately saying, oh, he was in X, Y, and Z. Like, it's not like he's Tom Cruise and he's the same dude in every movie that he's in.
Right. But is he American?
Yes. I want to say that he is.
It just feels like more often than not when you see like a really good actor, you're like, wow, it's probably British.
Yeah, there's several actors in Hemlock Grove that I believe are British and are playing Americans. One of them for sure. He was the villain in Mission Impossible 2. His name is escaping me right now. He was also the love interest in Prince Charming in Ever After, that Drew Barrymore movie from way back when.
I never saw that.
Gray something? I can't remember. Anyway, he's good. He's very good in it. Well, everybody is. So it's Hemlock Grove is definitely worth checking out. And as I mentioned last week, I was also watching Hell on Wheels, which I finished since last episode. And again, I can't say anything because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but you absolutely have to watch Hell on Wheels. If you like Westerns at all, you have to watch the show. It's an AMC show, so even though it's not Netflix original, it does have that freedom of being kind of extended cable, Mad Men, Walking Dead sort of freedom.
Breaking Bad, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it is fantastic. And without saying anything else, I'm just going to say, go check out Hell on Wheels Season 2, or both seasons if you haven't seen either one. Totally worth the 10 episodes per season. Really, really well done show. I've got a lot to say about these extended cable shows that are now on Netflix or the Netflix originals because they do things that you just can't do on TV, and it makes the entertainment value so much higher.
I gotta say, for Hell on Wheels really rubbed me the wrong way.
Really?
I've never seen an episode, but I remember seeing like there was like teaser trailers, commercials for it that just said Hell on Wheels. That's all it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I immediately thought, okay, this is gonna be a show about like a biker gang that makes a deal with the devil. This is gonna be like Ghost Rider, except no Nicolas Cage and no bad writing or acting. This is gonna be one of those really deep, really good, crackling dialogue kind of dramas with this weird supernatural edge, but it's gonna be a very toned down, subdued supernatural, not a lot of special effects, but it's gonna make its bones by the acting and the good writing. And then I was like, oh, it's about trains in the Old West. So
Yeah.
I immediately I liked my idea way better.
like
So
the
I kind of
Supernatural better.
rejected that show based on that, which is really unfair.
Yeah, well, and it's very good in terms of the harshness of the environment, which is where the name comes from. It's all about the camp at the end of the Transcontinental Railroad as it's being built. And this camp is called Hell on Wheels because it's hell to work there, and they move it every 200 yards after they complete the track. But it's very, very good, and it deals with some really cool issues. Oh, actually, I'm not unlike I would imagine some of the issues that are probably addressed in Django Unchained. Yeah, because it's around the same time as the end of the American Civil War, and slaves are freed, and so some of the workers on the railroad are black, and there's a lot of racial tension. There's racial tension and tension between the whites as well, because there's like Germans and Irish not getting along and all this kind of noise. So it's an interesting mishmash of people from all over the globe, and totally worth checking out. I really liked season 2.
I don't think I've ever seen a Western that had a character that was Canadian.
That's a really good.
You see Americans, like I said, you see Irishmen, you might see some Germans, you might see some Chinese, you see black people. You never see someone like, hey, I'm from Canada. Anyone? Some guy at the bar like, well, I'm from Canada, guys.
Yeah, the only thing that I can think of that's not a Western, it's How I Met Your Mother. Robin Scherbatsky on that show. The character is Canadian and the actress is Canadian as well. Unfortunately, they make a farce of it. Like they hit all the stereotypes and they don't really treat it that normal, which is too bad. I don't know. There's a lot of there have been some Canadian Westerns that have been made in Canada, but I hate to say it, but the production quality of most television in Canada is just not there for me. Like it feels, you look at it and it feels like it's shot on home video, and the acting is not always good. Apparently, some of the dramas, they're not necessarily Westerns, but they're kind of like early 1900s dramas, like Road to Avonlea, Anne of Green Gables, that kind of stuff. Horse and buggies, wagons and stuff like that.
Right.
Is apparently, they're all, those are well-renowned shows and period pieces, but I don't know of any Canadian Westerns. Hell on Wheels is filmed, at least in part, in Alberta. Because it's Wyoming, I think, is where they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be obviously in the Midwest, as they're crossing the American continent. But they're filming a lot of it in Alberta, which probably looks very similar.
Does that ever feel weird that like it seems like 90% of Hollywood movies are made in Canada. They come up to Canada, they shoot movies,
Yep.
and then they come back down and they like, here's our movie starring American actors, and then you're like being used in a way.
Hey, look,
and
know
then
what?
you have your Canadian shows, and like you said, they look like they're just shot on video. Like, aw, but we have the same place. We're all going to the same place to film.
Yeah.
But our stuff looks crap, and your stuff looks amazing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Lots of shows and lots of movies. The Incredible Hulk, that fight scene is in downtown Toronto. The Smallville, a lot of it was filmed in Vancouver, or all of it was filmed in Vancouver. What else has been filmed in Canada? There's a couple of movies that have been filmed up here in Halifax, where I'm from. I can't remember the name of it. Harrison Ford was in it, and he was Russian, I think.
The K-19
Yes,
Widowmaker.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, that was the one. And there's been lots of other stuff up here too. I think one of the biggest draws is cheaper labor and cheaper laws when it comes to filming. And if you want wide open spaces, Canada is certainly the place to be. The other thing is that I don't know how much of this might be true in the States, but there's provincial tax credits here in Canada. They're different from province to province, but if you're hiring your labor force locally, then you can claim 50% of the wages that you're paying as a tax credit in province. So I'm sure what a lot of American production companies do is have a Canadian sister company that's incorporated on Canadian soil and has offices here to then hire their labor force and stuff, and are then able to claim the tax credit and stuff like that.
But does that feel like, do you feel like a sense of pride when you're watching a movie and they're having a shootout and like, we're in New York having a shootout. You're like, no, you're in downtown Toronto. I can tell, I mean, is it like a sense of pride, or you're like, you sons of bitches come here and you just use us for our locations and you leave?
No, I think it's cool. I don't mind it at all. I mean, hey, look, I mean, anything that boosts local economy anywhere is a good thing. I'm cool with that. Plus, I mean, I never get to California, so I mean, like, I've met a couple of celebrities out this way, which has been really kind of an interesting experience. Yeah.
Who'd you meet? Just name dropping.
Jim Caviezel.
No kidding.
Met him in the Starbucks.
Actually, did you say anything to him?
Yeah, no, I was talking to him for a couple of minutes. Actually,
Really?
it's funny. I just told Jocelyn the story the other day. What happened was he and girlfriend, partner, whoever, with a young kid were having coffee at Starbucks, and there was a lineup for the bathroom, and I let his lady friend and her daughter go in ahead of me. And he turned to say, thank you. That was, very nice. And I was like, oh, dude, whatever. Like, obviously the kid had to go. And I just kind of looked at him as like, it's Mr. Caviezel, right? And he's like, yep, sure. And he shook my hand, and I told him that I saw him first in Count of Monte Cristo. And he said he was filming a movie in town, and he was really enjoying his time here. And the conversation was short because, of course, by the time that, his lady friend and the kid were done in the bathroom, the conversation was over. But the funny part came later. After the pleasant exchange, I went back to my table, they went back to theirs, and just kind of sat and did your thing. But then they got up to leave, and some of the other people in the cafe had started noticing. They're like, oh, that looks like Jim Caviezel. Is that him? And you see people checking cell phones and stuff. And then on his way out, of course, he looked over at me and he waved as he walked away, as a cheers, nice to meet you sort of thing. And then everybody that was around me in the cafe is looking at me like, what?
What? See, that's where I would have done when he waved at me, I would have given him I would make the little gun motion with my finger, go, give him a little wink, make it look like we really know each other.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, see you later, Jimmy.
Yeah, see you later. That's my buddy Jim. James, we call him back home. Yeah, no, he was actually quite nice. It was always refreshing to meet people like that are down to earth with their time.
Now, did you know it was Jim Caviezel as soon as you saw him? Or, did you know that that was his name?
No, I looked at him and I knew I recognized him from movies, and it's the same game that you play in your head. I didn't have IMDb at the time, so it was looking at him, and it wasn't until I feel like he was standing in line or something at Starbucks getting coffee, and when he turned sideways, I recognized the profile. So for whatever reason, I was just like, oh no, that's the guy from the Count of Monte Cristo. Like I had seen it recently, so I kind of figured out who he was.
I mean, but you could recall his. I mean, because you can recognize an actor, but like, oh, what is that guy's name?
Yeah,
Jim Caviezel seems like the prototypical. I know that guy, but I don't know his name. Actor.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't hear Jim Caviezel banded around much, but you can see him. You can see his face. You're like, oh, it's that one guy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. That's how I felt with a movie that I watched over this last week, actually, called Ironclad. It's like a medieval, not turn of the century, but like 1200 AD period piece about King John's reign and the signing of the Magna Carta. And it's got all kinds of people in it. It's got Brian Cox, it's got Paul Giamatti, it's got James Purefoy, and James Purefoy is the guy where I'm just like, who the what now is this guy? And I was trying for the life of me to figure it out, and he is the guy that plays Marcus Aurelius in Rome. And you'd know him as soon as you see him. He's been in all kinds of like British / Roman period pieces where he's just always playing like the soldier, and I just never knew his name.
Wait, what was that name again?
James Purefoy, Purefoy.
I'll look him up and see if I recognize.
Yeah, and Brian Cox, a lot of people know. He was in X-Men 2 and Bourne Identity, Bourne Supremacy,
Braveheart.
Yeah, no, he's in a lot of stuff. Kate Mara is actually from the latest Netflix production House of Cards. And Paul Giamatti, of course, people know him from all over the place. But Paul Giamatti plays King John, which was very well done, really, really well portrayed. King John.
Paul Giamatti seems like the last of the good character actors. It seems like a lot of young actors are all pretty boys.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Few.
There's a lot, eh? Like, I mean, when we went to Pacific Rim, I was like, all right, which one of these 8 dudes with 6-packs is going to be fighting with his shirt off in the next 15 minutes? You know,
right.
I mean, not that a couple of them weren't good actors as well, but it feels like everybody is just these pretty boy built like a brick shit house. Like, where do they come from?
I assume England. That's where all that's England's major export now is actors.
Actors, yeah. Hasn't it always been?
But yeah, it's like you don't. Like, you really couldn't be an impersonator now. You know, like a comedian that does impersonations of actors. Because it's like, you're running out of like okay, well, here's, oh God, now I blanked on all the actors' names. You know, here's the wolf boy from Twilight, and here's the vampire boy from Twilight, and then here's this boy from this movie. And it's like, it's all the same dude, you know?
Yeah,
like I think you could tell, like if an impersonator did Paul Giamatti and he did him well, I would say, oh, that's Paul Giamatti, because I could tell he's got vocal inflections and an attitude and mannerisms.
Yeah,
all these pretty boys are all interchangeable.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about anybody that's not, and I'm drawing a blank. You know, like I mean, James Garfield is okay, but he's there's lots of guys that could play the same thing. What's his face there from the new Jobs movie?
Ashton Kutcher.
Ashton Kutcher. He is not necessarily different in every film that he's in, but he's at least a good actor.
Yeah.
Like he's not bad, but he's got the same sort of visage in every movie. Like he's got the same delivery, etc. So he's not really playing a broad.
And I gotta tell you, I don't know about you. There's a part of me that's really rooting for Ashton in this Jobs movie.
Me too. It looks like a good story.
Like I agree. He feels like he's a good actor, but he's never really had a project to really sink his teeth into.
Mm-hmm.
And the trailers I've seen some old black and white photos of Steve Jobs. I'm like, oh, is that Ashton like doing some publicity? Like, oh no, that's Steve Jobs.
Yeah,
he's got the look, he's got the mannerisms.
Yep, I think he's going to do very well. I'm a little concerned about, not that the movie is going to be good or bad, but because I'm a fan of technology and I listen to a lot of tech podcasts and stuff, it's going to be under the magnifying glass. And I'm worried that people are going to overprocess, overthink, overanalyze, and destroy whatever hope this movie has of being good. I think it's going to be good. I hope to see it and avoid as much reviews and opinions as I can until I see it for myself. Because I'm excited. I think it's going to be a pretty good, like one of those feel good movies. One of those life story. Like it's another Forrest Gump. It's a adventure of someone's life that is just kind of like not the American dream, but success and ingenuity and all these different things that I think it's
one of those movies that you leave and you feel like, wow, I've done nothing.
Yeah.
I have done nothing with my life. My life has been nothing but a waste.
I know that feeling. Oh man, I do know that feeling. I don't know. There's so many really interesting movies coming out too. Like one of the trailers that I saw, I want to say just a couple days ago on Twitter, was the new trailer for Ender's Game. And that looks really good. And dock me some geek cred. I've not read the books. Jocelyn has, and she loved them. So I'm really curious to see where that might go. And speaking of talented young male actors, a little kid, he's a teenager now. The kid from Hugo is playing Ender, and I really feel like he's going to do a good job. He strikes me as not just a pretty face, but a talented actor. So I'm looking forward to seeing where that might go. And Harrison Ford is in that too. And I like that some of my favorite actors from action movies and from adventure movies growing up are now kind of getting to the age where like they're the wise old general or they're the sage, the advice giver. Jeff Bridges is doing the same thing in some of his movies. He's not so much the action star or the main dude as he is like the wise one, the one that has done it all before.
But you don't see, it's funny. You never see Jeff Bridges none of his characters ever trip over anything.
No.
His characters are always like the badass, like it's like the young guy's like, oh, Jeff Bridges, what am I supposed to? And then he pulls his gun out or his Tron disc and kills everybody. He's like, that's how you do it, son.
Yeah.
Like I wonder, you get that at a certain age, and now you're just always the badass. Jeff Bridges is now always the badass in whatever movie he's in.
Yeah, you're right. Like they did that with Bruce Willis. They do that with I guess Schwarzenegger's back making movies again. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I would see some of his stuff just for the comedic value of it because I do find he's no matter what, he's entertaining.
He's entertaining, but now I don't know. The problem is he got out of the game. I think if he was stayed in the game, I'd be fine watching Schwarzenegger movies. Like I'm fine. Like if Bruce Willis made Die Hard, and
11.
then he made Hooper, and that was it. That was his whole movie career. I'm like, holy crap, Bruce Willis let himself go. But because he's always made movies, you got used to the receding hairline. You got used to his lines in his face and everything.
Yeah.
But now looking at Schwarzenegger, like it's depressing. He looks like. He just looks like he always looks like he just got out of bed and he's confused. His eyes are kind of squinty. He just doesn't look right anymore. It's like, no, you should have just left your movies. Let us remember you for the good movies. Don't make this.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how as some actors get older, their features change so much. Especially male actors. Like you get their eyes get smaller and they just look grumpier all the time. Like Clint Eastwood's a good example. I'm trying to think about some other actors that are getting up there.
Tom Hanks is the one that kind of surprises me. He doesn't seem to be that different.
No,
like he's still even like I never saw Cloud Atlas, but I saw the trailers for it, and I was like, wow, he still looks. He doesn't look like a really creepy old man. He still looks like the Tom Hanks we all know.
Yeah,
he can still rock black hair.
Yes.
It doesn't look weird.
Yeah, absolutely. He's actually in a new movie coming out that I'm really curious to see. I think it's called Finding Mary.
Oh, it's
the one about Mary Poppins. Is the trailer.
And I didn't. Yeah, I started watching that trailer. I had no idea what the trailer was, what this movie was gonna be about, and then I realized what it is. And you see him, and he's freaking Walt Disney. And my first thought was like, of course.
Well, yeah.
If you couldn't get Tom Hanks to play Walt Disney, you might as well just scrap the whole project.
Well, absolutely, and he's getting to that age where he can play those kind of parts.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that he could have done it 10 years ago.
Right.
There are some projects that I would imagine that people just put on hold when the right actor is busy or not old enough yet. It just I don't know. Saving Mr. Banks
There it
is
is.
the name of the movie, which is, I think, the name of the dude in Mary Poppins, the dad.
Mhm.
I think that's what the thing. The only thing about that trailer, I feel like they kind of reveal an awful lot of what the plot's going to be about.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm a sucker for any kind of behind the scenes
Mm-hmm.
stuff about movies
Absolutely.
and all those little anecdotes of like weird things that happen, how the movie got made.
Mm-hmm.
The whole fact that she's the writer of the Mary Poppins. She's listened to them sing songs and they're singing gibberish. She's like, I don't like that gibberish, and it's like, oh, and they had the she doesn't like them making up words, and they show them kind of like looking sheepishly at this one line where it starts to say supercalifragilistic, and they're kind of like, oh, let's cover that.
Cover that up, yeah.
I was like,
no.
I love all those little weird little like, oh, the writer of the book hated all that nonsense. I love all those little anecdotes. So even though as a movie, yeah, I saw Mary Poppins as a little kid, and it was cute and magic and everything, but now
Yeah.
I have no interest in it. But I love all the. I'm like, I don't care about the story. I don't care about Walt Disney learning to love again or whatever. I just want the anecdotes. I just want all the behind the scenes crap.
Yeah, yeah. I can tell you though, I will watch Emma Thompson in just about anything. I find her very, very good. So I'm sure that she will do it justice.
It feels like this will be, next year's Oscars.
Yeah.
Emma Thompson.
Do you kind of feel that maybe Tom Hanks possibly wasted on Disney in this movie when there could be a movie about Disney himself? Like a biopic about Walt Disney? How come that hasn't happened?
That is actually a really good point. Yeah, the problem is because he was, I'm not sure how old he was, but he was a fairly young guy when he made Steamboat Willie and all that jazz.
Oh yeah,
he's had a huge life, and you wouldn't want to gloss over that.
No.
So how would you get an actor that could play a young Walt Disney and an old Walt Disney?
Well, you can get a couple different actors. They wouldn't. I would imagine they would spend most of the time in like the feature film section in like the 40s and 60s.
Maybe it's because everyone that's approached the Disney biography, they start doing research and like, wow, Nazi sympathizer. Didn't know that. Well, you know what? Let's find a new project. Let's do a movie about Facebook. How about that?
Yeah, it's hard when there's so much unknown stuff about Disney. I mean, I'm still thumbing through a big biography that my dad gave me a couple of years ago now, and it's a huge book. Like it's cumbersome to even hold and read, and there is some very interesting facts, about just his. Not so much the way he carried himself, but the kind of values that he held as he was growing up. It's a very, very unique sort of look on things. But well, what have you been watching? Anything interesting? Anything that we've missed over the last little bit that you want to recommend for people?
Nah.
No,
nothing. Well,
Go
I'll
read
tell you
comics.
what I've been watching a lot is I have been watching a lot of YouTube.
Oh yeah.
Like. I got an Xbox 360, and a few years ago, they had like the YouTube app where you can watch YouTube on your, on your Xbox. And I got a big TV, so I'm like, oh, this would be neat, can watch some YouTube videos. And I kind of feel that YouTube is getting to this kind of second generation of video makers, where at first, YouTube was, they had people who could have their own channels, and like, oh, isn't that cute? They're calling them channels.
Mm-hmm.
Now it does feel like you're having like professional people, like the talent's kind of rising to the top, and like there's people making videos that are like not TV show quality, but it's not just some Yahoo talking in front of the webcam.
Yeah,
they've
people
like
got
putting production value
yeah.
and writing and
editing
and having good, like it's like now the term channel feels legitimate for YouTube, and I feel like I'll find a new channel and I'll subscribe, and then eventually I'll find another channel and I'll subscribe to that. And now it's like I got like 40 channels I'm subscribed to. The last one I just subscribed to was now I'm late to the game with this one as well. One called Game Grumps.
Okay.
Which is like two guys playing video games and joking around with each other. But the thing is, they're actually genuinely funny.
Oh, nice.
Like I thought about this. Like some of the YouTube channels I've subscribed to, like Rooster Teeth is one I found not too long ago, and that's like it's kind of weird when you find like, oh hey, who's this people called Rooster Teeth, and then you start looking into it like, oh wow, it's this huge company with like, tons of employees, and they have a warehouse, and they actually have like offices and film crews, and like they do all these things. Like wow, it'd be like He'd be like flipping on TV and like, oh hey, there's a channel called NBC. Did you guys know that? There's a channel called NBC. Oh look, they have a whole bunch of shows. It's like that. It's like, oh my god, there's this whole a catalog of work that these people have been doing, and I just now discovered them. And also watching people like the Game Grumps and Rooster Teeth and stuff. It's like I have laughed more at the last year's worth of YouTube videos than probably the last 10 years of television.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like there is so much good content out there now that I really don't watch TV anymore. It's like all my stuff is like either Netflix, and it's becoming more and more like watching these YouTube channels I've subscribed to, So that's what I've been watching.
Yeah, we've got a friend, Jocelyn and I, Mark Turpin, Terpster, known to many people on the Frog Pants Network, and he works with these guys in London or just outside of London, called the Yogs Cast, and they do video game commentary and all kinds of entertaining YouTube stuff. But they produce a ton of content for YouTube, and they were the first. I think they were the first company or first content creators to hit 4 billion views.
Oh man,
or something on YouTube. I could have it's either 4 million or 4 billion. Either way, it's a lot.
Right.
It's a lot of attention, and these guys make their living from Yogscast. There's a small company, but they're still a very successful company, doing really well with movies that are beyond, like you said, beyond the camcorder, handheld, cell phone videos. But they're still very raw. Like they're still very personal. They're not a whole lot behind or beyond a really well produced podcast. They're not trying to be NBC, because the reason they're successful is because people can identify them when it sounds like they're just hanging out with them and making jokes and being crude and playing Minecraft and being silly and doing all this kind of stuff. And it's fantastic, to see that kind of success become so accessible to the average Joe. If you've got a creative bone in your body and you want to go try YouTube, the only thing between you and YouTube is $150 for a decent camera.
Right.
That's it. You can do just about anything. It's kind of crazy. And that's why I'm putting the show up on YouTube, because I'm out of touch with today's youth, as it were. And as I found out when I was on vacation, there's a lot of people. Some of the people that were at Nerdtacular have teenagers, etc. And a lot of kids are listening to music and stuff and podcasts on YouTube. They're not necessarily watching YouTube. They just put YouTube on in the background, just like you and I would put the television on in the background if we were going to sketch or something. They would put YouTube on and they'll listen to music videos or they'll listen to shows / watch shows, but they're not really watching the content. So I thought, all I need to do is just not have a blank white screen when I'm putting the Citadel Cafe up there. So, I came up with a title card. Gives me a good excuse to put some new kind of artwork together each week for the show. And, I'm looking forward to putting it out there on YouTube to take the spaghetti and throw it up against the wall and, see what kind of attention I can generate and maybe increase the listenership. Because it's not going to cost me anything. I have to record the show. I have to post it on iTunes anyway. I might as well just hit the export button on one other program overnight one night and post it somewhere else. Like it's really no trouble. So I'm looking forward to trying to find some more listeners in a different venue. So
and I'm trying. That's something I actually kind of want to get into. Is I want to start a YouTube channel and start putting up just all sorts of stuff, just whatever I can think of.
Yeah, you could even take videos of yourself drawing. Like I've done that before.
It's funny you mentioned it. Just yesterday, I was trying to figure out how to mount my iPhone and do like a time lapse of me drawing, and I gave up because I couldn't get it to the right angle I want. I was like, it's gonna take forever to do. But like I think about like when I was little and like talking into a tape recorder and trying to make my own show on a tape recorder. Like if I could have had the stuff, if I could have had what I have now, like here's a computer, Here's a mixer. Here's a microphone. Here's the thing called the internet. It's like I would have lost my freaking mind. Like I have access to all these tools. Like, am I a TV producer in the future? Like, nah. You've thought about making a YouTube channel, but you just never got around to it. Like I would, my mind would have exploded. Like this is everything I've ever wanted. And so yeah, I kind of feel like I gotta get it. I want to get in on this action, and I want to you talk about like podcasts. Like I don't care if I make a penny off this.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to make a YouTube channel just because I think it'd be fun to like just do videos and do animation and whatever and put podcasts on there. And but yeah, it's like I just have not got around to. Part of my problem is like I could never figure out what I wanted to call the channel. Like, what do I want to call this? Like, that was the biggest problem for me.
Bug Martini.
Then that's pretty much what I'm going with.
Yeah, I mean, you become rich and famous, then you hire me to animate Bug, and then it's an endless vicious cycle of creativity and hilarity. Like, my God, why would we ever want to do that?
If I had the money to pay you to animate Bug, I would totally give it like, here, do it, please.
Too funny, man. I would, if the time ever comes, I would love to jump at the chance because I am a fan of your comic strip and especially the frequency of it. Like I continue to be impressed that you come up with so many ideas and post 5 days a week when I am barely putting up one comic a week. And I think that everybody listening should definitely check out Bug Martini at bugmartini.com.
Well, I'll tell you, it helps to not have a social life.
Well, there you go.
It helps to do that and nothing else.
I simplified mine. Jocelyn and I live together, so that means I don't have to go very far for a date.
That's what I need.
Barbecue and a glass of wine. It's pretty simple, but it's it's. I'm actually lately. I've been looking forward to having a little bit more time to spend on my creative endeavors because previously I had a lot of focus on client work and a lot of focus on fulfilling the Indiegogo packages and stuff like that. But I'm really happy to be back into doing more drawing than I have in the past. It's one of those frustrating points of having the company from home is that sometimes you have to spend like the whole week marketing and emailing and making sure there's another contract to pay the rent next month, and you don't get to draw when you want to. Right. And that can be a little bit frustrating. But lately, I've been back at the drawing board quite a bit and having some fun with it. So I'm looking forward to posting more stuff, including more videos. I'd like to do more time-lapse videos of me drawing and painting if my computer doesn't explode when I try to do a screen capture of the screen while I'm painting in Photoshop. It tends to be pretty heavy load on the old MacBook Pro when I'm painting, so I don't know if recording the screen would necessarily be good for it, but we'll see.
Hey, let me ask you if this is a bad idea. Strapping the iPhone to my head.
If you can keep your head really still.
I don't think I can do that.
No, probably not.
You probably discovered that I screw around a lot. Like I draw for a little bit, and then I'm watching a YouTube video for like the next hour, and then I go back to drawing.
Which would be really funny if the YouTube video was on your phone and you're kind of like chasing your tail around, trying to see, going to find a mirror and looking at the YouTube video on your forehead. No, I tell you what I do though. What I had is I've got a newly installed bookshelf that's very low. It's close to my drawing table, and I have 3 desk lamps, 2 of which are lamps. The third in the middle has a camera strapped to it. So you've got the boom of the arm of the desk lamp. You also have the tilt and rotation of the head of the lamp. And then there's no bulb in it. I just stuck a piece of cardboard in the cone and then attached the camera to that. And it's just a little webcam. Webcams these days do 1080p or 720 at least. And I mean, it cost me under $100. And it works great.
God damn it! I never would have thought of that. I'm sitting here. I was actually putting my iPhone in like the headband strap of my hat. Like, can this work? No. That's all. Yes, exactly. Oh my God! I'm glad you said that. That's perfect. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, it's cheap. I mean, it cost me $9.99 at Walmart. It's a great little addition. You depending on how heavy your web camera is, you might have to tighten the screws on the arm of the lamp so that the weight of the camera doesn't move the lamp.
Right.
Plus, if you're moving it when you're drawing, you want it to stay where you leave it. So having the screws really tight help with that. Right. And the shelf, of course, because I have a drawing board, I don't do everything digital. When I erase, I was shaking the table. So I had this brilliant idea, like, this is going to be so cool. And then the first video, I was shaking all over the place. Because, of course, when I erased on the board, it shook the camera. It's like, well, that was dumb. That's why the tripod was next to me for the last 3 years. But now that I've got this other shelf in here, it works out quite well. So,
awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm totally stealing that idea.
Hey, look, go nuts, man. I mean, if I could even think about it's a black and silver. I'm sure they're the same at Walmart everywhere. But like, and if you're not spending, I mean, if you're not putting a light bulb in it, then who the hell cares what it costs, right? As long as it stays together long enough to hold a webcam. And it's a Logitech C910. Cost me like $70 on Amazon.
Nice.
Isn't that good?
Yeah, I think I'd probably just duct tape my iPhone to it.
Well, there you go. Yeah, you could do that too. I had an iPhone with electrical tape on it one time to do it. The iPhones are heavy. That's the only thing, is that you have to have something really secure. If you have like a piece of cardboard or something that you could like zap strap the iPhone to, that would probably help.
Nice.
But on that note, actually, I should probably wrap up the show because it's been super fun having you on, man. But like, we ran out of time in a blink. It's after 10 o'clock here. So
Well, hey, who says this has to be an hour? We can go for 2.
well,
good.
it's about 8,000 degrees in my apartment right now, so I do have to get going. But thanks very much, man, for being on the show.
It's been fun, man.
Oh God, it's such a pleasure to have you here. For those of you listening, you can find the show every Wednesday night on joelduggan.com/live at 8 p.m. Eastern. The music for the show was composed by Kevin MacLeod, and of course, you can find the show on demand at thecitadelcafe.com, as well as social media. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus as The Citadel Cafe. Same thing for our email. It's just the name of the show at gmail.com. Write us with ideas, stuff you want us to watch, stuff that you don't want us to watch, and possibly your opinions about the things that we have watched. Tell us we're wrong. If we've made mistakes, we want to know. Don't forget to check out The Gamers Inn every Friday night. That's the Gamers Inn podcast at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on amove.tv. That is my better half, Jocelyn, and her co-host, Ryan, breaking down and talking about the latest in video game news and what they're playing. You can find that at gamersinpodcast.com or amove.tv/TGI for details. My name, as I mentioned at the top of the show, is Joel Duggan. You can find everything that I'm up to online at joelduggan.com. That includes my book, Starcrossed Volume 1, and information about my appearance this weekend at the Dartmouth Comic Arts Festival at Alderney Landing on Sunday, August 18th. Can't wait to go check out some local comic stuff. It's going to be fun. So if you're local to Halifax or even just Nova Scotia and the Maritimes, come on down. It's going to be a fun afternoon. It is absolutely free. There's going to be lots of comic people there, so come check it out and shake some hands, say hello to your favorite cartoonists, and maybe even pick up some stuff. There's going to be people selling sketches and prints and all kinds of things. So that's it for me. Adam, where can people find you online?
They can find me at bugmartini.com, and I'm at Twitter at bugmartini. And that's it. Well, no, wait. Oh, those Geeks of Steel.
There's more. Oh, yeah, don't forget the podcast. Don't leave Matt out, man.
I was trying to think, that's all I do, right? I just do the comic, right? Geeks of Steel at geeksofsteel.com, and find us on iTunes and all that jazz.
Fantastic. It's a good show. I don't listen all the time, but I certainly build up archives, and then I binge and take care of like Saturday ironing and laundry and stuff, and then listen to a bunch of podcasts. So
that's pretty much what I do.
Well, until then, folks, you have been listening to the Citadel Cafe, where we are fast, easy, and cheap, but you can only pick 2.
It's even way more casual than that, because you have notes.
Yeah, you guys
Matt
don't
and I
have
talked
notes.
about that because I think Matt was on your show and he talked to us
He
has
was.
show notes. I'm like, he has notes? Because we just turn on the mics like, what do you want to talk about? And I don't know. It's not even that. It's like, do you have anything to talk about? And it's like, yes, okay, record. And that's as far as we think about it.
Yeah. For me, it's more of I prep for the show kind of throughout the week. So it's like I need some place to brain dump when I think, oh, I should talk about that on the show. Mm-hmm. And if I don't, then it's like, there was something cool that I was supposed to talk about, and I don't know what it was, but I don't know. It's lost in the ether now.
See, I count on Matt to do that. And I just sit back and I just riff off whatever.
Yeah. Peyton's not here, so I'm going to give him shit. He does the same thing. He kind of counts on me, I think, for the notes. And I mean, he always brings interesting stuff to the table, but there's always a little bit of...
I was going to say, I remember I did do notes in the beginning when we were doing our podcast. Mm-hmm. Like I filled up a whole one of those legal size notebooks. Mm-hmm. Filled up a whole page of notes. And I got to like 2 things out of like a dozen things. And then I was writing smaller and smaller notes. And then I would just write on a Post-it, Transformers 3, talk about that. And now I'm just like, screw it.
Now you're just writing Matt's name so you don't forget it. And...
Talk to Matt.